open up the discussion about the differences, because there are, between prevention, rescue, restoration, reintegration, prosecution, and education, nationally and internationally, because it is quite different.
Kelly, kudos to you for making us very aware of how just beyond our comprehension, how big this issue is. But now we have expertise and resources in this room. And I don't want you to do something you have to go learn how to do. I want you to find out what it is you have that we need. What expertise do you have? What resources do you have? If you have time and you live near a school and you can volunteer in an after-school program for homeless kids, prevention is better. But it isn't well funded. If you look at the human trafficking model for fighting human trafficking, prevention, protection, prosecution, and partnership is part of that as well. Prevention is the least funded. Educating parents, doing community outreach before they become victims, prevention in the schools, prevention with jobs. There are so many ways we can become part of that.
The initiative that I started that just happened at Angel Stadium September 16th of this year was the Strike Out Slavery initiative. I went to Major League Baseball and I said, you guys need to do something about this issue of human trafficking, because it's global, it's everywhere. It happens at stadiums, and we created a safe environment. We had a small family festival that was inside the ballpark. That's kind of what I'm doing in the way of prevention, but I am a big advocate that that's going to be a part of helping put out some of this fire.
From the juvenile perspective, as a juvenile presiding judge, we work collaboratively with a lot of agencies. We have a CSEC steering committee. We work very closely with our social service agency, but also other stakeholders, our probation department, the law enforcement agencies, our Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force. But I'm very saddened to see how many people lack the knowledge that this is happening in your own backyard. Every single city in Orange County has a pervasive issue with human trafficking of our children. It has to be put into the education system, spoken to appropriately, age appropriate, so we work with our Department of Education. For me, it is a prevention issue, because if we can address the issues at our children and families at the root cause, we can eradicate this modern day slavery. And it really touched me when Kelly started talking about that, because I want to see this eradicated in my lifetime. It can be. Fear has to be put in the exploiters and the Johns or the sex purchasers, taking the fear away from my kids. This is wrong that my kids are the one who have the fear. We need to empower them and put the fear where it belongs, and that's with those traffickers. So that's an education piece.
I think the best form of prevention is prosecution. Kevin and I were talking earlier, if you cut down on the demand, then you're going to cut down on the supply. And we need to take a victim-centered approach. But if 9 out of 10 of those girls are being arrested and treated like a criminal, we have a problem. 10 out of 10 men who are out there buying are actually out there by choice. So with prevention, I mean, this film is a great prevention piece. Educating people. It's all about education. So we go into the school system. We've had a lot of favor where we're at, and so we go in and we educate high school students, and our goal is to go in and talk to the junior high students. And so, some statistics, the average age that a girl enters in to human trafficking is 11 to 13 years old. And we're seeing that here. So we go in and we educate, and then we also have awareness, where we're bringing this to the public eye, and more people are getting involved.
We like to say in our organization, prevention's better than a cure. If you can get to these families and these kids before they're horrifically abused, the process to wholeness or meeting the need of that family so that they can go on living flourishing lives is much better. And so the countries that we work in, you have weak justice systems many times, so lax laws. You have extreme poverty, a lack of education, and you have corruption. That really creates the perfect breeding ground for this issue to exist. So really meeting root causes of why families are struggling so that you can meet that need before a child is easily coerced or tricked or forced into the sex trade.
For our ministry, we've been very blessed to have not only a national here in the United States, but also an international ministry. So basically our heart, our passion is to identify the victim, then locate the victim, and then recover the victim. So that's the process that we use. We identify her first, that she is in fact a human trafficking victim. Because what's going to happen is eventually you want to try to get this person into some type of aftercare where she's going to be safe. We keep saying her, but there's also boys and men. So locally here in the United States, what we do, like I say, is we identify them, we locate them, and then we help recover them. Much like Pastor Doug said, we have the way our team is set up for exits, we call it exits, is that we have the actual rescue vehicle, recovery vehicle, exit vehicle, and then the second vehicle we have is a scout. I happen to be a retired law enforcement officer, and I was on a SWAT team for 15 years, and I take training extremely serious. I take safety, it's paramount. With everything we do, it's paramount. Not only safety for the team, but also for the victim. We don't want to endanger the victim, so it's very important that the people that we train, they all understand this. They go through 8 hours of training for the exit team. They want to be a part of the exit team. If you want to be a part of the team that works at Harbor Boulevard, you have to go through 2 hours of training. Once you complete the 2 hours of training, the women have to go out. You work as an advocate. And the men they operate as security. They're away from the advocates, so that advocates can make contact with the victim on the street, but they're not so far away they can't intervene, but they're not so close that they cause the victim to become uncomfortable. So these are some of the things that we're doing locally. Then we also teach women only. We teach them how to go online, go on different websites and look for women who are posted on those websites, and then we give you certain identifiers to look for so that you can identify her as a human trafficking victim. Once that's done, then our advocate will start making contact with that victim either by cell phone, with a burner phone, or a duped Gmail account. So you get the conversation going back and forth.
We only work with adult women. So we work with, if you're 18 years old or older, you've come out of the commercial sex industry through pornography, stripping, prostitution, and human trafficking, the commercial sex, and you want help, then that's who we work with. Now, we rescue every girl that calls. We have backpacks that we hand out on the street, and the backpacks have my phone number on them for the organization. And when the girl wants out, she makes a phone call. We figure out the safest time to get her. We travel in 2s and 3s, and we extract the women. We find out where the trafficker's at, what is the safest time and place to get her out, and then we just coordinate that. I believe we've rescued 86 women out of sex trafficking over the last 4 years here in Central California. But we've only had 7 come into our shelter because they wanted to go back to their family. They wanted to try to go somewhere else. And some of them, they just leave the shelter because they want to go back. You know, a lot of the women go back. I think a solid number is right around 9 or 10 times that a girl will go back to her trafficker before she finally gets out.
We've been doing this in this county pretty heavily for the last 5 years. And so we work with what's called the Orange County Human Trafficking Task Force and work with all the different police agencies throughout the county to go and find our girls, rescue them, and get them out of the life. There's a lot of similarities between international and domestic in that the victims that are trafficked domestically have the same vulnerability factors that are present in the international victims. The victims that are targeted have money, poverty issues, lack of education, disabilities, exposure to sexual assault at an early age. And so from a law enforcement rescue standpoint, we've had to learn about trafficking as it exists in Orange County or the country, learn how the victims work, how the pimps and traffickers work within the county so we can identify where they are. When we started, the shocking part for me was not just that it was in your backyard, but you think, okay, it's in Harbor Boulevard. Great. Everybody knows that. Well, at least everyone in law enforcement. Everybody in law enforcement knows that's where it's at. The scary part was, yeah, it's also in Yorba Linda, Irvine, Newport Beach, Costa Mesa, Fullerton, wherever, right? So that was our first challenge in rescuing them, was deciding that, wait, we can't limit it to one area. We got to get as many as we can in a broad area as we can. And so the biggest challenge we have in the law enforcement side is not only getting to the victim, but having the victim trust us, because we've kind of abused their trust, not kind of, We have not earned their trust over the last few decades. We've done nothing on the law enforcement side or as a prosecutor to earn their trust. So we've had to train our officers and our prosecutors on how to talk with them, how to interact with them, and how to earn that trust. And even then, it's remarkably challenging. Our view of rescuing the girl is, first and foremost, getting her away from the trafficker and put him in prison. If I can separate that bond, then I have a better shot at trying to help her if she wants it. From a rescue standpoint, I will say the thing I learned most is that you can't rescue them if they're not ready to be rescued, if that makes sense, right? Like, you could go in and go, hey, you're being beaten every day, you're being raped every day, and that could all be true. I mean, literally physically beaten. And she's like, okay, well, that should stop. Like, that's bad. And she's like, okay, yeah, I'm not leaving. Okay. Like, you just cannot force it. I think our view of rescue now, at least my view personally of rescue, is less about just saving them and more about saying, when you are ready, we have the resources for you when you make the choice. Because if I force her to do something, I'm no different than the guy exploiting her anyway.
When we rescue a kid, sometimes them coming to live in one of our safe homes away from their family for, it could be 6 months to a year and a half or longer, that is traumatic to a child. They know their parents did not knowingly sell them, but they were coerced or tricked. Their child was promised to work in a factory situation. We have found that going back to the family and finding out the root causes of how that child ended up in the sex trade and providing the best solution for that child is best for long-term healing, wholeness, and care. If the parents didn't knowingly sell that child, we will reintegrate that child back with their family and provide a solution as a family unit. So if it's poverty, we'll provide a microloan for the family. We'll provide counseling for the child. We'll assess where that child is in their education. Many times these kids might be 15 years old, but they have a first grade level education because they come from an impoverished family and they were not afforded an education. And many of them, they don't want to go on to further their education. They want to learn a skill or trade to be able to support their families.
So at our shelter, you can earn a college degree. We have therapists. We have a counseling. We have mentors. We have Bible study groups where the women come in and love on the other women. And we just make them a part of our family. We do life with these people. This isn't just some makeshift, hey, you know what, we're going to get you out and I hope you're great. You know, we walk with them through good times and bad. And we have successes where the women have graduated. You know, we have a coffee shop we opened in January. One of the girls that we rescued, who went on to graduate our program, graduated with a 3.85 GPA and went on to become a manager. That's the girl that we rescued where her mom started selling her at the age of 7. I mean, there's good and there's bad, but, you know, these are people. These aren't statistics. They're not numbers. These are human beings who deserve a life that's not an ongoing prison day in and day out. These are people, and they deserve to be treated with dignity and respect. And I know I speak for everyone on this panel. I mean, that's why we're here.
I feel like that was the biggest gap from a global perspective was helping NGOs that already exist who are doing rehabilitation get their successful, restored, healthy, thriving individuals back into our economic systems, back into healthy, sustainable lifestyles so that they now can have jobs and be employed. And so that's where we developed the culinary arts program that we have here in Orange County. So my goal is to have hundreds of thousands of people employed around the world through networking, through training, at all levels, at all capacities.
If you can take this model in this county and be successful, working with nonprofits and working in this kind of field, we can take that model and go to LA County, and then go to Sacramento, Alameda County, and then Texas, and then Oregon, and so on. You get the idea. As a prosecutor, we have to be aggressive and we have to show them results. Our success was when the more aggressive we were, the better results we got. Then we got more buy-in from the officers going, okay, these guys aren't just singing a hippie song about saving the victims. They actually want to put bad guys in prison. And then that's been successful. So how many of you will be willing to contact your legislature? right? Like it's not that hard to just call your state senator or your state legislator and be like, hey, how come human trafficking's on a strike, by the way? And if it were on the like, right? I mean, just really put pressure, because again, you are the voting bloc, and we've seen where that can make an impact. So I'd highly recommend that.
26 seconds. 26 seconds.